Welcome back to Voices on the Hill. I am your host, Corey King, and I'm here with the one and only men's basketball head coach, Justin Barkley. Coach, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to hang out, get to talk a little bit. How you doing today?
Corey, I'm great.
Yeah.
I appreciate you letting me work through the whole season. If we tried this thing 2 months ago, there's no telling what kind of mood I would have been in. So I'm glad to be here.
Hey, I know how it is. When you're in the season, people trying to talk to you, trying to, just have a little conversation. You're just like, look, I just need some time. I got my own thoughts going on. You're head of the ship. And you've been head of the ship for multiple years, and it's always it's a different roller coaster every year. And so obviously this year has been a successful year. Made it to the MIAA tournament. Talk about your reflection on this year and what your thoughts are.
Well, my first thoughts were, I was very grateful of our players. Throughout the season, there's always, moments you look back on and when things can change and for the good. But, obviously preseason, which you don't put a lot of stock into. You're picked ninth. You lose 3 all-league players. And you're obviously curious of the development of the guys that was in the program, the guys that you brought in, how will that mesh. I was very pleased with the outcome. This team really grew on me as the season went. We had some very, very tough wins, some on the road, some at home. Obviously had some games we'd like to have had back. But I think when you look at the whole overview, obviously my outlook is very positive, and I'm very thankful for this group. We had 4 seniors that did an outstanding job day in and day out, and I think the arrow's pointing up within our program. It's our job to continue to use that as a springboard for success, and hopefully it's something we can build on.
Most definitely. And I think it was cool to watch you guys develop. Obviously, being able to watch you guys at home, kind of watching you guys grow. A little bit of a slow start in some of the scrimmages and in the first couple of games. But I think probably one of the the bigger switches in momentum was switching Kofi Hamilton into the lineup. It was kind of cool to watch his energy, being able to have a guy to be able to. You don't have to call plays for him. He can just grab rebounds, scrappy things. Talk about what Kofi brings to the team as he's coming back next year.
First word that I think of Kofi Hamilton is unselfish. He's about others first. He's a serving person. He's a guy that I've been very lucky to have around me. And, each and every year, you continue to just, I feel like our relationship continues to evolve. But, Kofi's just a young man that you never have to worry about is his motor on or off. Is he ready to hook up and compete? You're going to get a consistent workload from Kofi Hamilton day in and day out. And so, very excited about him coming back. Obviously during this spring and some of our last couple of weeks of workouts, I think he's done an outstanding job just leading by example and leading vocally as well. Something that it's always cool to see guys as they continue to mature in the leadership roles. And I think he's got obviously a ton of ownership in our program. And to watch him just grow, man, he doesn't have a bigger fan on this campus than me.
Without a doubt. He's incredible. And you have a lot of incredible players. And we could go one by one all day long if we wanted to. But we obviously want to continue to move and talk about you mentioned this spring. And it's different being in the season because it's constant. We're preparing for the next person, the next opponent. What do coaches talk about during the spring with their guys? What does the spring look like for a head coach at the Division II level?
I think starting even with me somewhat, all the way down to our players, and we want to make it more importantly for the players, because obviously we've done this year in and year out. Like, you can understand, really more of the reset starts for us once guys are off campus. We have plenty of time to recharge. We're mature enough. It's the profession we chose. But for our players, it's a time for reset. It's a time to really identify things that not only are we good at, but things that we need to improve on. To me, it's not always go identify your weaknesses and just, we want to go from something we're good at. How do we become masters at it, become great? And that's, to me, you don't try to reinvent the wheel. You're always trying to Oh, you're just trying to, how do we get 5 to 10% better? At this time of the year, everyone would get to play college basketball is pretty good at something they do. They have a specialty trait. So how do we make them much better? Last thing we want to do is turn them into something they're not.
Right.
And so this time of the year, skill development is really high on our list, and it's something we really try to value.
You guys working constantly. You got great coaches. Coach Johnson and Coach Boone in there with the fellas constantly. Working on different skills, and I love popping in there and just to watch you guys play. It's a fun style of basketball. Talk about adding Coach Boone onto your staff. I know you're a defensive-minded coach. Not to say that your offense isn't important to you, but I know that is something that you value. Coach Boone brings in kind of a new kind of offense. Talking with Caden Fry, and his role had to grow. Mm-hmm. Talk about what why the switch and how that change went this year.
Well, first of all, I hit a home run when I landed Coach Boone. Last year, my lead assistant, Coach Wayman, had landed a job, an opportunity to better himself and his family, and I was tickled to death for him. So we really didn't fill that position full time until the springtime. And so I had an opportunity to kind of, put some feelers out and try to make some phone calls and find out who's out there. And, obviously I've got a lot of respect for his father, who's won over 600 collegiate games as a head coach. He played a style of the way I was raised and played at Northeastern State for Coach Gibson. And so there was some connections, and, I just sat down and met with him, and there was an obvious connection, and I thought that he would bring a level of maturity, knowledge of the game, his relationships. Coach Boone is very soon going to be in line to be a head coach somewhere. So for me, I've never looked at thinking I've got to have somebody here for 5 or 10 years. Like, just help me elevate the program, work your tail off, and I'll do everything in my power to help you. But, Coach is a basketball mind. He's always thinking. I love that. He's bouncing ideas off me all the time. But he's just loyal and hardworking. He's detailed. Just everything that you look for in a right-hand man. And I've been really lucky that this has worked out as easy and smooth as it has over the last 12 months.
100%. And I, obviously, as a new person onto campus, and he was too, it was cool to build a relationship, with you guys and with him. And I think he brings such a lighthearted energy, but an intensity at the same time. It's a beautiful balance. And I think that helps the team in the long run.
No doubt. And what makes Coach Boone really good, he can identify with several different personalities. Listen, I'm not the easiest guy, and you get me right in the moment. I could be a handful, and he has taken it. He's smiled. Half the time, like, I'm sorry, Coach. He's like, Coach, you don't need to apologize. But he's been awesome, and he's a very dependable person, and thankful he's here.
We are very thankful that he is here. Talking about yourself, I think I'm a person that enjoys understanding how coaches are. Some way of saying in layman's terms, reading somebody's vibe. I appreciate who you are within meetings. I think you exude so much leadership at the top of your program. How do you instill those these kind of qualities into your leaders on your own team?
I think it starts with relationships. Unfortunately, I think the NCAA is going through a really weird time right now. I was talking to a Division I coach just yesterday, and he said he's got 8 kids in the portal, and it just, at some point, we've lost a little bit of our priorities of, why are we doing this? And I don't want our relationships to be transactional. To me, I've told our team this, I've told anybody, listen, the day this isn't about relationships, the day I want to get out of the business. It can be challenging, but at the end of the day, we're here to serve a purpose. We're here to love on our guys. Obviously, we're going to have discipline. We're going to have some structure, but we also want to put kids in a position where they can have success. Yeah. And, for me, when I talk about leadership with guys that we feel like are in a leadership position within our team, I feel like it's my job to help communicate what leadership looks like. Leadership can be done so many different ways. It can be vocally, it can be through, your actions. It can be showing up daily and just doing your job. To me, it's just, I think, leadership does scream. You can be quiet though. And so I've been lucky on our really good basketball teams we've had. We've been a player-led team. And that's allowed me to, be probably more my natural self on the floor. But it's also made my job a lot easier where I can more manage the basketball game and what's going on. But you're going to have a hard time finding a team that wins championships that doesn't have great player leaders. And they go hand in hand.
Without a doubt. I think every coach that I've ever met that's talked about they've had state championships, national championships, conference championships, they've always talked about player-led teams. And it's, as a former player, and I wonder if from your perspective, when coaches used to tell you that when you were a player, how did you comprehend that? Like, what did that mean to you? Because, leadership, although developed, I think is kind of born within you. You kind of you're around it. It's kind of a nature-nurture kind of situation. So when you were a player, how did you understand those concepts of it's a player-led team until now understanding as a coach, I need you guys to step up to lead this team?
I would agree. Some of it is just more personality. I don't know if you can read a book on how to be a leader sometimes. I think it can help you. But, to me, it's just, I think as you kind of thrust yourself into certain positions and you tend to feel from the right and the left guys are leaning on you. Mm-hmm. And the last thing you want to do when you're in a team sport is let anybody down that's in your circle. It's something that you just gravitate to. And so I've been lucky to be on, if it's state championship teams or national championship teams. Not always does it have to be your very most talented player. It's got to be a guy that it's very dependable, that shows up to work every single day and maximizes their ability to the best they can. And when you have guys that are strong-minded and in terms of mental toughness, even through the face of adversity, can weather any type of storm coming their direction. If you got those types of guys, it starts to bleed into others. Mm. And so then it gets very infectious. But leadership is not something that's just passed out. I think it's something you earn. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't have it, good luck trying to navigate through the tough parts of a season.
Yeah, it is hard. And there are teams, you can tell with teams that have it that don't, even with the simple things. Yeah. There's an out-of-bounds play. Are they huddling? Are they getting together and communicating? I know that when I was coaching women's basketball, that was like the biggest thing that I used to preach. If the ball goes out of bounds, if there's somebody on the ground, y'all better be the first ones up to get her up, mm-hmm. and y'all better be the first ones to just talk. Whether it's a simple pick-me-up, hey, good pass over here, hey, great shot over here. Those simple things are how you build a culture, something that's a winning thing. And it's something that I'm very passionate about. My whole family is born leaders. My dad was an administrator, my mom's an administrator. So every day, I'm around leaders and people who are, leaders of men and women. And so those things have been instilled in me. And so I always am curious on how coaches instill differently. Because like you said, leadership isn't linear. It's a scatter plot. You can lead in so many different types of ways. So I've always been curious about that. I touched on it a little bit about culture. Talk about how you build culture within your team. And I think that's also something that's similar to leadership, but it's a little bit different when you're talking about building culture, and especially in today's game when you talked about the NCAA is in a whole different landscape than it's ever been before with the transfer portal. You got the NILs. So when you say it's transactional, you got people coming in, got people leaving, but you still are RSU basketball. So what do you do to build your culture?
I think each and every year you identify, the personalities of your team, how we're going to navigate this. I think you got to have some flexibility in times like today. I'm not saying that you be loose, but you got to figure out what each person, how they tick. Mm. Now, how that goes into the team, obviously you have certain non-negotiables and negotiable things. There's a line. Let's not cross that line. Right. But I think you got to be consistent with your approach. You can't treat every guy the same way. I had to learn that a little bit later on in my playing career. But you got to understand how do you maximize every guy? It might take a certain student athlete a different way to learn something or get his attention or motivate them. Your job is to figure out what makes guys tick. Some guys want conversations every day. Some guys, hey, give them some space. Some of them want heat apply. I mean, there's so many different ways. And for me, on the culture aspect, I've never been one to be the smartest guy in the room in terms of, execution. So to me, what we identify are kids that are competitive, they're tough. Let me in, let me coach you. Obviously, that takes time for me to let down walls in the relationship department where you can trust. But to me, we just want guys that are competitive and, in a way, play with a little bit of an edge.
Yeah.
Very blue collar. We've played several different styles of basketball offensively over the last 10 years. Defensively, it's pretty much been about the same system, but offensively, my job is let's go identify the best players we possibly can to add to our program, and then let's adjust to the personalities in the room. Let's have some flexibility, because if you're just going to be dead set on we're only playing this way, you might miss out on some opportunities that reach your full potential.
Most definitely. You talked about, adjusting to people. Hard to do, especially in a short period of time. How long does it take for you, on average, to be like, okay, I think I've earned the trust of this kid? Because, for football, like if you got somebody coming in and you're playing that fall, that ain't a long time to get to know somebody and understand somebody, and we're passionate individuals. So your passion may not be shown the way that kid likes to receive passion.
Yeah.
So how long does it take you to kind of navigate those situations?
I think it depends on the individual. How much time do they have? If it's a 1-year guy, if it's a 2-year guy, whatever it may be. Obviously when we get into school in August, you try to spend time with them, have them come by the office, spend time talking to them on the floor or whatnot. And then, I think it's just how fast do you want to speed things up? With the 1-year guy, we try to be very honest in the recruiting. Like, listen, you got 1 year. We want you to feel like you've been here for 3 or 4 years. So in order for that to happen, I'm going to apply some pressure pretty quickly.
Yep.
And that way we can work through some levels of this. Mm-hmm. And, I've been fortunate enough to have some really good transfers that have come in here and then have trusted me. Does it take a little bit of time? Sure it does. But for me, it just depends on where we're at in the season, when to kind of hit different accelerations. Like, if you got 4 years, that takes some time. There's no need. But with 1 year, I want them to feel like we're on the same page, obviously much sooner than anything on the back end of the season.
Most definitely. And it's difficult. I can only imagine when you have these 1-year kids coming in, you got to be like, look, you got to bear with me for a second. I'm trying to get you somewhere in an exponential rate, really quickly. So, talking about these situations where you're getting these 1-year kids in, talk about recruiting for you and how it's changed even in the last 5 years for you, and how that has affected RSU basketball, maybe in a positive way, or even in a negative way.
About the only thing that I feel like has changed, you've seen Division I transfers allowing the one-time transfer, whatnot. You're starting to see more of them stay at the Division I level. I tried to go identify a certain amount of high school guys. If it's been a 3-year transfer, 2-year transfer, we're not. To me, I'm just trying to put the best team that I can forward. It's really difficult in today's age to look down the road 2, 3, 4 years. Unfortunately, I had a coach that I really respect on one time. Program building is becoming less and less. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's becoming more team building. That team. Now, obviously, during that year, you want to continue to develop guys that are younger in their career. But you've got to really put set of eyes on those 9 to 12 months you've got to try to get them ready to go from November to March. we will go to wherever we need to go find them. We'll get on every phone call. We'll get in the car. It doesn't really matter to me. But as long as you get guys that, I've tried to be very honest in the recruiting process. I don't really care to, for used car salesman type approach. So sometimes I'll ask the staff, was I too blunt? Probably in the recruiting, because I want to be able to make sure I'm telling them this is how we are, and this is what we're about.
Honesty is the best policy. Yeah, I mean, it's cliche, it's corny, but it's the truth. You know what I'm saying? I, as a former player, and when I was going through my recruiting process, be honest with me.
Yeah.
Where do you want me at? Coach told me I want you at a DN position. You're not doing any pass coverage. When I was coming to high school, that wasn't what I wanted to hear. So I was gonna be like, cool, thank you for the opportunity to chit chat, but that's not what I want. And I think that kids more than ever should be wanting to be told the truth, and less about what can you give me. You know what I'm saying? It's because it's what we can give you as coaches is an opportunity to play, get your education, and to make memories for a lifetime. And we're going to get there for a second when we talk about your time at NSU and winning a national championship and everything. But I think that's probably the biggest thing that you can to learn in life lessons, and being able to understand how to work with people from all across the country. Because it's different. If you're from a small town in Minnesota and you go to college and you got kids from the inner city, Chicago, you got kids from all across the country, it's hard you got to learn how to blend relationships, and those are something that it's very valuable, extremely valuable. You're blessed to be not only the winning coach in your for yourself, but you have winning in your family. Your dad has been a coach, you said, for 46 years.
Yeah.
And I know, what is that like to be within a family of basketball and being a prodigy?
From a young age, growing up, getting off the school bus, just going to basketball practice or walking down the hallway. Both my parents were educators. You find a passion in education. Like the relationships you have with former players, the phone calls, the mail, whatever you may get. The wins are nice, but the relationships and the bonds that you make are something you can't put a price on. And so growing up and just seeing that interaction, and obviously being around the sport and it's something you love, I grew fond of it real quick. Yeah. I mean, I just, when I was in college, I really never even considered being a college basketball coach, to be honest. I just figured I was going to be a high school coach. It's what I knew. It's what my family knew. My dad was extremely, and still is, very successful. And so for me, it was just something I just gravitated to. It was just a natural fit. I just see the impact as educators can make on people. I mean, to me, I think I would get bored if I had something of the job. I just know how I operate and what I get to do on a daily basis. What I love about my job is the fact that not one day is ever the same. There's something new. And so you always constantly just kind of roll in and learn how to deal with different things. And for me, I like the challenges of it. It's something I've embraced and been very blessed to do for the time I've been in the business.
Most definitely. And it's a beautiful thing. And something that I didn't know that we had in common is that both our families are in education.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a huge part of coaching, is that coaches are teachers, and being able to say maybe a concept in multiple different ways. And I think that is such a benefit when coaches have that background of understanding that everybody learns a little bit different. This kid might be a visual learner. This kid might be an audio learner. On all these different kind of things. So I think that is a huge bonus that you have in your arsenal. I do want to bring up, we had the RSU second annual Hall of Fame induction. You were placed in the induction with the 2008 and 2009 team. Kind of talk about what that is like, being in the Hall of Fame, and what do you remember from those teams, from that team?
So I was just coming in as an assistant coach, And I remember walking into the gym. Most of the guys were here over the summer, and I was watching them play pickup, and I was like, wow, a lot of talent here. And, Coach Williams did an outstanding job with that group. I don't know if Rogers State will ever see a group of talented kids all in one setting ever look like that again. I mean, it was incredible. And they were unselfish. They played for each other. It was really cool to see them all come back and obviously be honored. It was very well deserving. That team, I thought, put Rogers State basketball on the map. For that to happen in year 2 is a credit to Ren Baker and Coach Lloyd Williams. They did an outstanding job just identifying the right guys to bring in. They're the number 1 team in the country, and I was obviously lucky to be a part of, the journey with that group. They made me a better coach, and I was very fortunate.
Any particular memories that stick out to you that are like, when you think back into that time, of like, wow, that was a pretty cool moment?
Yeah, I think a lot of people try to identify that season in games. We played number 1 against number 2 in the country. We played Oklahoma Baptist, and they were kind of the benchmark, at least from what I knew coming into the league. And, for us, it was a great atmosphere. I think winning that, obviously we clinched at least a share of the conference championship. And so it was awesome, for us, and to see the celebration with it being such a new thing in town. We haven't had college athletics in 20, 30 years. And so for that to be, in a program like the men's basketball team at that year, it really started bringing in, I thought, a lot of attention for our athletic programs, and it really moved the needle in the right direction.
And that's pretty cool that you're a part of that history. Yeah. That you can't talk about RSU athletics without talking about that team at that time. But that was not only just the only event that you had that day. It was homecoming, so you had to play a game, coach a game, and then not only that, you went to the Iola's first ever Hall of Fame class as well. Talk about what that was like.
Yeah, that was an emotional day. Going from, obviously, RSU's Hall of Fame, and then we play in our game that day, I think, against Emporia State. I believe and then we go on, and later that evening, I had the good fortune of inducting my dad into the inaugural class of the Iola High School Sports Hall of Fame. And it's awesome. I think, we've talked about this for 45 years. He's poured everything he can into a community. It's where he went to school. So, it was a special moment. And just to see that how much it meant to him, and just to share a small piece of that as a player for him, just being around throughout the years was really neat. But, man, a lot of emotion throughout the day. And thankfully, all 3 of them was on the right side with just good vibes. It was great. A high-level conference win, and then you got these 2 things, and it's a celebration of a lot of good people. And, man, I was just lucky to just be a part of it.
I can only imagine the amount of emotions just waking up that day and be like, man, not only do I have a game, which takes enough emotions in itself, but I'm being inducted, I'm inducting my father. Like,
I slept good that night. That's what you know.
I bet you did. Speaking about your father, you were on his state championship team. You were talking before. You won in 1998. When I was like, I'm going to date you a little bit. This year I was born, so it's pretty cool. Talk about what it's like to play for your dad, and then not only to play for your dad, to have a moment that will last a lifetime. To be able to win a state championship, only a few people get to do it. And the only state championship for men's or boys basketball, yeah. And I know, what is that like?
You can't put it into words. That's 25 years ago, and it feels like it was 5 years ago. The memories are so vivid. You remember leading up to it, the whole weekend, that season. To be able to do that with your dad, just knowing that he's missed out on the wrong side of luck or coming up just a little bit short a few times. And, it's funny how things just work out, the timing of stuff. And it was a great group of teammates. He did a great job of challenging us throughout that summer. But it just, if you'd have told me how you'd write a book and that's what you're going to do is end up win a state championship with your dad, then you'll move along and have some pretty good fortunes along with your playing career in college. Just, man, Lord's blessed me. I don't know how else to put it. It's just I've been really lucky to be around some really good people.
Most definitely. And you can't you kind of skimmed over the fortune in your college career. You won a national championship there too. But I can only imagine sharing such a special moment with your father. I'm blessed to be a part of a historically black fraternity, and my dad is also part of that fraternity as well. So being able to have those moments, with your dad, because there's something about having a relationship with your dad, a boy to dad relationship, but being able to have something that where we see eye to eye on takes your relationship to a whole new level. And I'm happy that you're able to have that with your dad. I wanted to just briefly talk about your national championship.
Yeah.
What was that like? Obviously, I didn't get a ring when I was playing. Still irks me to this day. But I was able to get a conference championship. But a national championship is what we all strive for. We dream about when you're a kid, when you're working out, countless hours. What was that like to not only win the state championship, but now you won the national championship as well?
So going into my freshman year, I came into a group that had 7 seniors. I didn't play a whole lot. There was no transfer portal. There was no, what do? You just kind of got to figure it out. You got to pull up, tighten up your boots and figure it out and roll your sleeves up. You just got to keep working at it, So we get the NCAA tournament my freshman year. We win the conference. Sophomore year, a few guys get injured, and I get a chance to thrust into some more playing time early on in my sophomore year. And then we win the conference again, get to the NCAA tournament. Junior year, team gets off to an outstanding start, and we I think we were 15-0 and ranked number 2 or 1 in the country. Came out of nowhere. We win the conference. We're 28-1. We're hosting as the number 1 seed my junior year, and we get beaten double overtime. Our starting point guard got injured 2 weeks before the regular season was over. Our All-American big man fouls out in regulation, and we got just beat to Rockhurst in the double overtime on our home court.
Wow.
And the rest of the tournament still got to play out. So we finished the season number 2 in the country, 28-2, and got upset at that time it was a 48-team tournament. So you'd have 6 or 8 regions of 6 teams. So we got a bye. So the next year, obviously, our coach knew we had something special. As players, we probably didn't understand this going through it at the moment, but that was the most challenging offseason I've ever endured in my life after going 28-2 and ranked number 2 in the country, because the nucleus of our team was returning, and he challenged us. I mean, every Friday we were on the turf running the 6-minute mile. Oh. And we were in the weight room. We were getting coached hard for the final 6-7 weeks of school. We go home, we come back, and there's more of it just waiting on us. I'm like, man, this is tough. That team goes 32-3 my senior year. We get beat in the semifinals of the Lone Star Conference tournament. We won the regular season title. And I remember having a closed-door meeting with about 3 or 4 of us spoke out of our whole team. And said, listen, this is our last go-around. We're going to have to get together. And we go on the road at Tarleton State, playing in the Sweet 16 game. And we get up pretty good to start the game. Place is packed. It's standing room only. And they take the lead with about 5 to go. And then we overcome that and win the game by about 5, I believe. We get to the Elite 8, and we didn't have a game within single digits. And it just took off. And, just to be able to do that, like a lot of those guys I'd spent either 4 years with, 3 years, 2 years. I mean, the bond that we have, that group, it will never be broke. I mean, I've tried my best as a coach to emulate what we've gone through and try to, it's just tough. I mean, a lot of it's just natural chemistry that if everybody's on the same page, we were able to be coached extremely hard. We were broke down. We were built back up. I think we had each other's backs like I've never seen anything like.
Yeah.
There wasn't a selfish personality in that circle, and we had transfers. We had high school guys. We had junior college transfers. You had them all. It was a very special time. I got to see them all 2 years ago. We had our 20-year reunion, and it's like we hadn't missed a beat. Just to be able to spend the time with them, and I was very thankful.
That's cool. That's a beautiful thing, to be able to have those relationships last 20 years down the line. That is extremely special. I want to, kind of ask you about the brand of basketball that you guys played then, and then kind of ask you about how the evolution of basketball has taken place, and like how the game has changed. Who are the people who've kind of changed the game since the time that you won a national championship?
I thought the game was a little bit more physical, obviously, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I think they've tried to have more freedom of movement. They'd like for the pace of play. I think at that time our shot clock was 35 seconds.
Really? Okay.
Now it's 30. They're wanting to speed the game up. You could be more physical with screening or, post defense or on-ball defense. Now they're trying to clean a lot of that up. Obviously, the three-point line has moved back probably a good foot and a half. From when I've done, so they've tried to improve spacing for driving. Just different things. I think the athletes are getting bigger and stronger now. In what you're seeing, I think there's just more means to 12 months out of the year. If you want to have a personal trainer, be able to get to weight rooms. High schools are changing in terms of, they've got a strength and conditioning coach early on in their career. So, the times are changing. I think still the game is pure enough that the high-level teams are very disciplined and, however you want to play, there's a million ways to skin a cat. I mean, you can play fast, you can play slow, you can play inside out or 5 out. It doesn't really matter. Right. I think you just got to get 5 guys on the court at one time to buy in to their roles. And so the most unselfish teams, as you saw with UConn now the last 2 years, like they've got high-end talent, but man, it looks like to me, from what I've seen, doesn't really matter who's getting the credit as long as they're winning. Yeah. So
that's a beautiful brand of basketball when you're able to do that. And I think there are other teams that have emulated that. I think that every team that has won in the last few years embraced that, being able to I can't be the only one. This has to be a full team effort. But you are more than just basketball. And you do things outside. You said that you are an avid fisher, an avid golfer. Talk about how these hobbies are able to help you kind of center yourself. Because obviously, if you obsess yourself over a certain thing, it'll drive you nuts.
Well, let's use the word avid. Let's use that term very loosely. Because that's going to require you to go a lot, and I don't have time to go a lot. I've yet to even wet a line in fishing yet this spring, even though I know they're biting and it's killing me. Or golf, it's so windy, it's like flying a kite. My main hobby right now is my family. We miss out on so much from November or even October to March, and I miss out on Sutton's games. I'm telling you what, it every year it gets a little bit more challenging, but. That to me is my hobby. Right now she's knee-deep in playing on a soccer team, a softball team, and currently I broke through to the women's side. I'm coaching first and second grade girls basketball and having the time of my life. To me it's a great time during the spring and summer. We try to plan as much as we possibly can that fits into our schedules that around work. Allows us to spend quality family time, and then to me, that's what it's all about. If you're going to preach it to your players, you gotta be able to back it up.
Most definitely. Speaking about this, breaking into women's basketball, not only are you coaching your own daughter, you have Andrea Bond's daughter on the team as well. Talk about when you have 2 high-level coaches, on and have kids on the same team. What is that like? Obviously you guys are coworkers, and you guys have high expectations for teams. How do you bring that down into the youth level?
You know what? I was wondering the same thing. The first time, how do you temper your expectations and just understand what we're doing? And when you go and you see these girls smile, and their actions are so innocent. To me, it was so refreshing just to see them happy that something good happened, and you telling them good job, thumbs up, and they just smile. That for me is all I needed. It was good medicine, and I absolutely loved it. And so, we're practicing once or twice a week. We play on the weekends, and Quinn's doing awesome. Sutton's doing great. I'm tickled to death. I honestly look forward to it.
That's a beautiful thing, because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to. You've been playing at a certain level for so long, but man, seeing these kids smile. I remember doing the youth camps, and the kids are they're just happy to be around people who love the game, but also love them and want to see them invest in them. I'm gonna improve that. I'm paying attention in class, and I'm gonna do my MBA. Won't be able to tell you who did the TED Talk, but a gentleman talking about youth sports and how we've killed youth sports. Parents are killing youth sports because of the high expectations and my kid needs to do this, this, and this. And he talks about all you just need to say is, I loved watching you play. And everything else will take care of itself. And in enjoying watching your kid compete, whether they're the best player of the team, whether they're in the middle, and sometimes, they may not be the athlete that you want them to be. But as long as you're enjoying watching them play, I think that is the most beautiful thing that you can do. So I commend you on that. My mom is coaching my younger sibling in basketball and softball, and she talks about all the time how you gotta take off the mom hat, put on coach's hat, and have them be separate entities. So what are the card rides home like for you? Do you do any notes, or do you just?
I think usually I'll get a look from Emily hey, you better not turn on a full court press right here. This is not the time. No, honestly, I think it just goes back to we do in coach, read the room.
Yeah.
Is there a time for that?
Yeah.
To me, I think it's important I make it more extremely positive. Hey, proud of you. Great effort. Here's some things that you could try differently, but when they're so young and influential, it's very important that you don't take away their joy.
No. If
you take away their joy, last thing I would be sick to my stomach if I'm the one that influenced her to get away from a game.
Right.
She's young, enjoy it, play with your friends, and that way we just learn the game, and it'll develop as you go.
It certainly will. It certainly will. Speaking about family, you talked about your family history in Inola, 100 years, and you said that you worked on the ranch. Family has a ranch for over 100 years. Talk about what that's like. I can't even fathom that because my family's from all over the country, but being able to be home based in Oklahoma for so long. Talk about what that history means to you and your family.
I was raised, obviously, my folks, and my great grandfather had a ranch. He passed in 2003, and I believe he was 97 years old. And he had a ranch well before my time, where he had all kinds of different animals or crops. During my living years, it's just been nothing but livestock cattle. Myself and my cousins, we have taken over the ranch, and it's honestly a hobby as well. It's a hobby. Obviously, you do things with the cattle on your ranch, but for me, it's a getaway place as well. During the season when you're during the colder winter months, and you've got to feed them. That's where I see my father every morning before we go to school, and we work and we talk about maybe last night's game or practice or what's going on. To me, it's a great way for me to start my day. Mentally, I can kind of just clear my head, just go out there where I don't feel like I'm rushed. Might require me to get a little bit less sleep, but in the long run, once you start moving, to me, I enjoy it. I mean, it's something like I've said about fishing. It can be good medicine. Just being out there with nature, to me, is is a lot of fun. And it's something that's really grown on me probably over the last 10, 15 years, even more, to have more of appreciation than maybe I did when I was younger.
Yeah. I don't blame you, because when you're younger, you're like, man, I don't want to go out there to the cattle to take care of them. Do you have any good farming stories or times on the ranch that you can share with us? Any highlights, lowlights?
I don't know if any of them are appropriate for this podcast, but we used to go camping at times, me and my high school friends, and we had some great memories of just hanging out, riding around on four-wheelers and doing stuff that ornery kids would probably do when they were younger. But no, it's awesome. It's been a great time, and just fun fellowship times.
100%. My parents are, I have a stepfather, and they have, some land up in the Bemidji area.
Mm-hmm.
And my Uncle Butch had a bull, and apparently this bull was in the mood to charge at him. So
I've seen this multiple times. This doesn't work out well for people.
Well, somehow Uncle Butch made this one out alive. He said, come on with it, the bull charge. Apparently he took up a 2x4, cracked it right across the chin, right across the forehead. And I said, wow, Uncle Butch is built different to be able to take us. No, absolutely not.
There's a reason why you get 2,000 pounds. I'm out.
You're right. Look, you look like you don't have good intentions for me today.
No. He's marked his territory. You're fine. That's your carpet, buddy.
You take it. You can have it. Well, Coach, I appreciate it, truly, to get down to, chat with you and get to know you better. And I hope that the people at home get to, see you for who you are. Obviously the only time that they get to see you is when you are doing a little bit of pointing, doing a little bit of yelling. But, we are bigger than what they see on the field. Human beings have heart, we have soul. Yeah. And that's what we strive to show here on the show. So I appreciate you. But for another edition of Voices on the Hill, I'm Corey King, and for RSU men's basketball head coach Justin Barkley, we appreciate you guys watching.